What's up, friends? Welcome back to the Shelby Show. Today we are talking about your very first hire as a real estate agent. This is an imperative person in scaling your business and hopefully your right-hand man. We're talking about your transaction coordinator. Yo, what is a transaction coordinator? Commonly known as a TC, this is the person that you can hire to take your entire transaction from the point it goes under contract until close. Talking scheduling inspections, coordinating with the closing attorney, coordinating with the lender, communicating with the client, communicating with the agent on the other side of the transaction, checking in, following up, the whole 9 yards. Why should you hire that out ASAP? Because those tasks are a total time suck and the majority of them can be handled by someone whether they're licensed or not. Your time is better spent out there getting more deals. Who is this magical TC person? Well, starting out, I highly recommend that you hire someone who already knows what they're doing and has a mad amount of experience as a transaction coordinator. Down the road, once you're more set up, you can hire someone in-house, which ultimately will be cheaper for you, but you do not have time for that shit right now. Where do I find them? Ask your agent buddies. Or if you don't have any friends, you can go on your MLS's Facebook page and just comment asking for TC recommendations. From there, look who is the crowd favorite because your TC freaking matters. This is a huge, important hire within your business. So it's really important that you get someone who's great and already has a ton of experience. Get the one who's best, even if they are slightly more expensive. I promise it's worth it. Okay, now you found the perfect 3 candidates for your potential hire. It's time to interview them. So what do you even ask? I personally always start by asking their background. I want to know them as a human and we're going to be working together, so that's important. So I ask, who are you? What's your story? How long have you been an agent and or TC? You're gauging their experience, their personality, and what they care most about to make sure that it aligns with you. Next, I move on to their capacity. How many files can you work at a time? And how many closings do you generally do a month? Who have you worked with in the past? Who are you working with now? How many agents and how many teams? When you hit your max, do you turn agents away or do you keep loading shit onto your plate until everything falls through the cracks? Basically, you're trying to figure out whether or not they have the capacity to handle all of your shit. If they're too swamped, you need to move on. Next, I move on to work itself. I ask specifically for a step-by-step on how we're gonna be working together. If they don't know their process, how are you going to be able to integrate yours into theirs? At a minimum, you're going to need a clear and concise outline of what their job description is so you can know what they handle and what's left as your responsibility. Ask them, okay, I just went under contract. What happens? Now what? How do you collect information for the handover? What exactly do you do and what are the timelines associated with that? Is there anything you won't do? What are your hours of operation? What happens when shit hits the fan outside of your hours of operation? Do you step in or do we watch the whole place burn down together? I know this seems like a ton of questions, but asking all these questions up front and managing both of your expectations will save you both a lot of time and frustration down the road. The next set of questions is on systems. What kind of systems do they currently use? Are they familiar with the system that you currently use? I'm talking about whatever you use to write your contracts and get from contract to close. So if you're only familiar with .loop and they're only familiar with zip forms, y'all better both mentally prepare for a lot of learning curve up front in the beginning. Next is communication, arguably the most important one of all. You need to make sure you ask, how much are you gonna communicate with my client? How often are you gonna communicate with me? Once we have multiple contracts together, what is your system for keeping communication for each one of those contracts organized? Because if you guys can imagine, if you're only using a single text thread and you have 4 different properties under contract, you're gonna ask a question about 123 Main Street and that's just gonna get buried so fast by everything else. What I recommend is using WhatsApp. So on WhatsApp, you can create individual threads per property and only talk about that specific property within that thread. It helps everything keep super organized. Besides my WhatsApp side note, communication will make or break your relationship with your transaction coordinator and with your client. The number one reason why implementing a TC into your business fails is because of lack of communication. Your client won't be pissed when you hand over the contract to a TC if they love your TC more than you, which will totally happen if your TC has good communication. Same with the cross agent. The only time they're pissed is when they can't get a hold of anyone, or if they weren't expecting to have a TC involved at all. But that goes back to you. You have to manage expectations up front with both your client and with the cross agent. Next is money. How much do you get paid? How do I pay you? When do I pay you? The cool thing about transaction coordinators is generally they get paid at closing, which means you can use your commission to pay them, which is why you can hire them right now and you don't need money up front. And in summary, just ask them, is there anything else that I need to know? Is there anything else that you need to know? More than anything, this entire interview process is really just you trying to get to know them. Ultimately, this can absolutely work if you and your TC are on the same page and have a good relationship. Remember, although you're interviewing them, they're actually interviewing you too. And a good TC does not have to work with everyone, and they choose not to work with the people who are punk ass bitches. So don't be that. Okay, of those 3 TCs you planned on interviewing, the first one ghosted you, the second one's too busy for you, and the third one's perfect. Congratulations, you found your TC and your whole life is perfect and you never have to work again, right? Just because you hire a TC does not mean that you're relinquished of all responsibility. What happens in that transaction or fails to happen is still on your shoulders. The way that I think about it is that decisions are made by the agent. So that's negotiating and deciding on a way ahead. And then after those decisions are made, the TC is the one who executes those decisions. Make sense? Okay, so I know that was a ton of questions, so obviously I have a cheat sheet for this. If you want a copy of my questions to ask when interviewing a TC cheat sheet, just do 3 things. 1, subscribe to my channel. 2, share this video with an agent friend or on your social media. And 3, comment your email below. Working in real estate means that it's always a work in progress. You're always building. Shit is always changing. It's not easy and it's not pretty. But if you can embrace that and lean into that and find the joy in the never-ending problems that you have the opportunity to solve, your life will be a lot better. If we're not growing, we're dying. So let's not die. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. Make sure that you tune in next week for another episode of The Shelby Show. Thanks for hanging out, and bye.